What's up everyone and welcome back to Reload Reacts. My name is Trey and today we are going to look through r/ProRevenge, the subreddit for those who get back at the ones who wrong them and are usually quite good at doing it. This post is from Branzanon. My boss stole my Super Bowl tickets, so I made him lose a major client. With the NFL playoffs back on, I thought you all might enjoy this football related revenge story. I'm a huge 49ers fan, the rabbit all day tailgate in the parking lot type. A few years ago, we made it to the Super Bowl. I was working at a consulting firm with a handful of accounts I would interact with directly. One client in particular knew how big of a Niners fan I was. I was the day-to-day lead on his account. He really liked working with me and we became friends, often grabbing drinks or dinner after our meetings. He had access to a pair of extra company seats to the game, and as a thank you, wanted to give them to me as a gift. He passed the tickets over to a partner on that account, who I referred to as D-Head Partner, to be given to me as a surprise. The game came and went, we lost, it sucked. The next time we met, we went to drinks afterwards and he mentioned, "Hey, by the way, why didn't you go to the game? I heard someone else was in your seats." I asked, "What game?" He said the Super Bowl. Confused, I answered, "I didn't have seats to the Super Bowl." He told me that he gave D-Head Partner a pair of his company tickets for me as a gift so I could attend. I had zero idea what he was talking about. He looked shocked, told me to quietly ask around about it and get back to him. When I was back in the office the next week, I found out through one of the secretaries that D-Head Partner had given a pair of Super Bowl tickets to another one of his clients as a gift from our company. I might have to let this sort of thing go to keep the peace under different circumstances, but these seats were on the 30-yard line to see the effing 49ers play in the Super Bowl. I was peed. I considered confronting D-Head Partner myself, but realised it was the client who had noticed I wasn't there in the first place, so if I let him handle it, there would be no blowback on me. So I texted him, "Hey, I just wanted to thank you so much for thinking of me with those seats. It appears that they were given to another one of our firm's clients." He texted back right away in all caps, "Are you S-ing me?" And then, "Pretend I never told you, let me handle." He followed up with me about formulating a plan. A few days later, we were asked to come down for a meeting in their office. The client requested the partner be present, not entirely unusual. So D-Head Partner and I hopped a flight the next week and headed over to their office. Little did D-Head Partner know, my client had orchestrated a wonderfully awkward little show to catch him red-handed. When we entered the conference room, it was all the usual suspects along with a woman in her 30s we didn't recognise. My client immediately introduces, "D-Head Partner, this is Stephanie such and such, VP from other department. She wanted to sit in on this meeting. Hey OP, you guys must already know her from the Super Bowl." She then responds as she goes to shake my hand, "Oh, I don't think so. Did we meet there?" "I'm sorry if I forgot." Client responds, "Geez, Steph, how much did you have to drink? They were sitting right next to you." Client looks at me and I say, "Sorry client, I wasn't there. Are you thinking of someone else?" At this point, D-Head Partner is looking visibly uncomfortable, probably trying to come up with an excuse. He starts in with an when Stephanie says over him, "No, so-and-so from other company were in the seats. By the way, I was wondering why we gave company seats to those guys. Is there a project we're working with them on that I don't know about?" Obviously not, they were in completely different industries. It would be like Coca-Cola partnering with John Deere. D-Head Partner lets out an "ah" again and the client immediately speaks over him asking, "D-Head Partner, I gave you those tickets for OP?" At this point, D-Head Partner is turning bright red. He responds, well, he wasn't able to make it, so he must have given the seats away to someone else," and turns to me looking for me to cover him. Client smirks at me. I respond, what are you talking about? Client, you gave me tickets to the Super Bowl?" Client suddenly raises his voice, "D-Head Partner, those were a personal thank you gift from me to OP. Did you give them away to someone else?" Pause. "Was it another client?" D-Head Partner butts in with, "Oh, maybe something got mixed up in the office. Client went quiet for what probably seemed like an eternity to D-Head Partner. He then looked down, grabbed his portfolio and iPad, put them into his briefcase and said, "I think this meeting is over. OP, it seems as if I owe you a thank you gift. Let's go to lunch. Stephanie, you're welcome to join. D-Ed partner, I need to evaluate our relationship. Please go back home and expect to hear from us next week." D-Head partner suggests he would like to join, presumably to do damage control, and Stephanie sternly tells him, "I don't think that's a good idea," and asks the front desk to see D-Head partner out. As soon as he is in the elevator, we all break out laughing hysterically. Stephanie wasn't really a VP, just an employee at the company who client had drafted into helping with his pre-planned meeting skit. But she did end up coming to lunch with us and was a fellow Niners fan and a total blast to hang out with. On our way to the restaurant, I got a desperate text from D-Head partner saying I needed to cover for the firm and that we could discuss things when I got back. I replied, "Yes, we need to talk, but I'll see what I can do." Client told me to wait a couple hours and then respond to him. 1. To expect invoices for the resale value of the Super Bowl tickets. Resale is way above face value, it was over $10,000, as well as our lunch. He picked a pricey spot and made a big show of overspending, and that he expected them to be paid immediately. 2. Expected I would be given a direct apology. 3. Expected a written apology to his company for what he considered theft, and 4. He would only interact with me or another one of our firm's partners, never D-Head partner. This whole thing caused a stir with the other partners, and I actually came off looking great because it appeared that I had made a good faith effort to save the client for the firm, despite being the victim in this situation. The client would transfer to another partner, which meant D-Head partner lost his profit share on any work with them. Oh, and the other partners in the firm made D-Head partner pay the invoices back out of his salary. In retrospect, I really have no idea what the hell the guy was thinking. Did he seriously believe the client would just not notice me not thanking him for the Super Bowl tickets? Anyway, the well was kind of poisoned for me there long term because D-Head partner wasn't going anywhere. I left the firm a few months later for a much better position. Client ultimately terminated their position with a firm a year later. He actually now works with a good friend of mine at a competing firm. I'm still peed I missed out on the Super Bowl even though we lost. Hoping we make it back this year so I can finally go to one in person. Go Niners! The top comment reads, "Imagine what sort of human being you have to be to essentially steal a $10,000 ticket from a worker. Disgusting to say the least. The level of orchestration and execution on this revenge was so perfect though. Suck it, D-Head partner." The next post is by Twilling8. Thief tried to steal my car, accidentally filled it up with gas and brought it back to me instead. My first car was a 1984 Jeep CJ7, a pretty sweet ride for a dirt poor teenager in the 90s. I was working midnights at a gas station and loaned it to my brother who was taking a date to a party. I got a call around 1 AM from my brother who told me he left the keys in the Jeep and it was stolen. I was devastated. I was still on the phone with my brother when the thieves pulled my Jeep into the gas station to fill up on gas. As luck would have it, the gas gouge on my Jeep was broken and always read empty, and I worked at the only 24-hour gas stations in the area. I pressed the silent alarm and proceeded to fill up my Jeep. It was a full-serve station. When the thieves were out of the Jeep, I saw an opportunity to slip the key out of this ignition and into my pocket. They paid for the gas and argued amongst each other who had the keys last. The delay was enough for the police to arrive. I had to explain the story to the officer half a dozen times before he understood. The thief had this stunned look of disbelief on their faces I'll never forget. The cops were belly laughing telling this story to dispatch, all while the thieves sat in cuffs in the back of the squad car. The story made most of the major newspapers the following day. The top comment reads, "My wife's car got stolen from outside our house. A couple weeks later, the cops found it and returned it to us. The thieves had installed a new stereo in it, better than our old one, and we got to keep it. Win. Smiley face." This next post is by T. Crambo. "Owners didn't want to give me what I deserved. Now they are about to lose a $3 million contract because I resigned. I am a young project manager for an unlimited commercial GC. I picked up a hammer for the first time 6 years ago. no prior experience. I was raised believing if you work hard and apply yourself, you will be successful. For 2 years, I learnt everything that I could in the construction industry, took my work home with me and studied on my own time to better myself. For that, I was promoted to foreman. I was brought in to take over a small project at a 12-building, 120-unit condo complex. It started small, and the board of directors for the HOA told me they loved my professionalism, work ethic, and ability to complete projects on time and under budget. We won a big contract because of that small project. That was 3 years ago. I have since taken over the job of foreman, superintendent, and project manager. I do the billing, meetings with engineers and board members, scheduling, takeoff, material ordering. I even trade the subs on application of new products because we didn't have enough mid-management. The project just passed 2.7 million. We got another bid request for another 3 million job in the same complex. All the while, the board of directors telling me how appreciative they were and how they've gone through 5 different contractors in the years before committing to my company because of my management and quality of work. This boosted my confidence, and I went to the owners asking for the raise they promoted me 1 year ago for my production. They told me, the experience you're gaining is far more valuable. I said, you're right. I put my resume on public, got contacted by a headhunter, just accepted an offer this week for $80,000 a year salary, full benefits, 28 days paid time off including holidays, in the office now, no more working from the field, full in my own truck, laptop, Wi-Fi in my truck for on-the-go billing when I visit the out-of-state projects, $80 per diem, 100% matching 401k for the first 3 years of my employment, quarterly bonus programs. The company I'm with now only pays me $40,000, and that's it, none of the above listed benefits. The final nail in the coffin was when the owners bragged about how much my project made in a company meeting and then denied me a Christmas bonus. I laid this offer on their desk Friday and watched their jaws hit the floor. I told the HOA board president of the project I'm running about my resignation when they couldn't match my offer. His eyes got big and requested a meeting with the owners and expressed serious concern about moving forward with the new project without my involvement. They don't have anyone to replace me, and I'm not gonna lie, it feels good to hurt their pockets when I gave them everything I had for 6 years and only asked for the median project manager salary. If those greedy bastards. This next post is by DIY Packraft. I was visiting my friend at his dad's house in an area where the land is so steep all the driveways have to switch back up from the main road to the houses. A straight driveway is not an option because it would be steeper than the building code allows. A few doors down the road there lived a nice old couple who until recently had had a vacant lot next door to them, but the lot had sold and the new owner had started construction on the new house. Unfortunately, the lot was so steep that the new owner built his driveway partially on the old couple's land. It was carved out of the hillside with an excavator. This probably wouldn't have been a big deal if the new owner had approached the old couple first and asked nicely, but did he? Would I be telling this story if he had? In fact, the old couple had no idea this was happening until they came home one day to see a huge scar in the hillside snaking up from the road in front of their house, across the corner of their property, and winding upwards to where an excavator was working to prepare the land for their new neighbour's house. They were pretty upset, but being nice, reasonable people, they figured it was an honest mistake, so they went over to talk to the machine operator. He didn't know anything useful, but he was happy to give them the phone number of the new property owner. The old guy gave him a call and politely explained the situation, but his new neighbour, whom he'd never even met, was having none of it. He flat out denied that the driveway crossed the property line, and he was rude enough that the old guy was pretty upset. At this point, the old couple weren't sure what to do. They double checked the property pins to make sure they were right, and of course they were, but after having further conversations with the new owner, it was clear he was an unreasonable guy who wasn't going to come to the negotiating table willingly. The old couple didn't want to take legal action because that would have been expensive, and frankly, the damage to their yard was already done. At the same time, they couldn't just let someone walk all over them like that, especially if they were going to be living next door for the foreseeable future. So the situation stewed for a while as construction continued on the new house. Until one day, when my friend's dad saw the old couple in the neighbourhood and they started chatting. Of course they told him the story about the a-hole new neighbour. Now my friend's dad really likes the old couple, who didn't have a mean bone in their bodies, so he was pretty peeved about the situation, and when he went home he couldn't get it out of his head. That evening, after a few beers, he had a brilliant idea. He called up the old couple, explained his plan, and asked for their permission to carry it out. They chuckled and gave him the go-ahead, so he hopped into the rusty old full-size pickup he kept as a second vehicle and drove it over to the old couple's place, where he parked it across the encroaching driveway, making sure it was entirely on their property. The next morning, the work crew arrived bright and early to find that they couldn't drive to the house they were building because some jackass had parked a SE old F-150 across the driveway. They saw the note in the window with my friend's dad's phone number on it, so they called him to ask WTF. He explained that he had permission from the owners to park there and that no, he would not move his truck so they could get to work. Furthermore, if anyone attempted to tow the truck, they would be charged with trespassing and theft. There was no way the construction guys were going to haul all their tools up the hill by hand, and they didn't want to get into the middle of a legal battle, so they just called the new owner to let him know they'd be taking the day off and that they'd continue to take days off until the property boundary dispute was resolved. The new owner called the old couple in a fury, but the old couple told them the same thing my friend's dad told the construction workers. Basically, the vehicle was parked on their own property, so if he had a problem with that, he could go F himself. To make a long story here already short, the new neighbour ranted a while, but eventually he wanted his house to be built, so the nice old couple ended with a significant sum of money in exchange for an easement allowing the driveway to pass across the corner of their property, and my friend's dad got a several thank you cases of beer and the satisfaction that comes from putting an a-hole in his place. This next post is by Angry Aussie Gamer. I live in an apartment building which has end-to-end parking for 2 spaces per apartment, and access to the parking levels 1 to 5 are done via an automatic locked roller door which people can only get through if they have a remote for it or sneak through behind someone else. I only have a single car, and sometimes I let my friends park in the space in front of my car if they give me notice, so I generally park at the back of the double space, plus it's easier for my neighbours who have 2 cars. Earlier this year, a random car began parking in front of mine on Friday afternoons, meaning I couldn't go out with my car on Friday nights. Annoying, but not the biggest issue when you live super close to the city. This continued nearly every week over 5 weeks when I didn't park my car at the front of the bay, which I began doing, but times I planned to leave the space free for friends coming over or whatever, the car appeared again. I made repeated attempts to stop this behaviour by leaving notes, which escalated into leaving printouts of a photo of the car with the license plate clearly visible, and an explanation that if it happened again I'd press charges and or have the vehicle towed. Well, it happened again, and this time it was still there Saturday afternoon when I had been planning on going away with a group of my mates. My guess is, someone went out on Friday, got drunk and decided to pick up the car later, not concerning themselves with the inconvenience it caused anyone else. It clearly hadn't moved, as my aggressive note telling them to F off was still there, sitting limply under their wiper blades. I figured enough was enough, it was time to have the vehicle towed, so I called building management, eventually calling a tow company, who refused to help because the space was on the 3rd floor and they can't get any trucks up to that level because of the height and space restrictions. Ordinarily, most people would be pretty much screwed at this point, and I will admit I briefly considered sitting on the hood of the car until the jackass came to pick it up while sending my mates on their way without me. But they would have had to work out a new arrangement for transport as one car wouldn't have cut it. Fortunately for me, however, my parents only live 30 minutes away, and I have a garage where I work on one of my cars that's getting at the tail end of a minor restoration. One of the things I use pretty often is a set of vehicle positioning jacks to jam my project car right up against the wall of the garage to minimize the space it takes up. For anyone that doesn't know, vehicle positioning jacks are basically devices that slot under each wheel then lift the car up on hydraulics so you can freewheel it in any direction. Whilst I hadn't originally gone to retrieve them, when I had to take my project car off them, a bright idea came to my head. None of my mates minded spending an extra hour to screw someone over that had interfered with us, so we grabbed the jacks and went back, propped the car up and wheeled it out. 6 guys can easily move around a small hatchback, so we pushed across the level slowly and carefully to an area where there isn't parking, but there is a load supporting pillar with space enough for a car behind it, and a little section of the garage where it isn't lit, and is completely out of the way. Typically, there's a guy on my level that parks a motorbike there, but he isn't meant to, and I doubt he minded. We dumped it between the pillar and the wall, with the nose pointing towards the wall. I took back my angry note, the jacks, and we left to enjoy our weekend. When he came back Monday afternoon after the long weekend, the car was still there, which was no real surprise considering there was only about a foot of space for movement between the pillar and car, and another foot or so between the car and the wall. From the fact the front wheels had changed, we're guessing they did try to get it out unsuccessfully. It eventually went later in the week, though I'm not sure exactly how they managed it. I never saw that car again. This next post is by Tremendo the Great. Friend Crank called me at my job, so I had him served with a fake paternity suit at his. 10 years ago, a friend of mine, Crank, called me several times in my office over the course of a day. I decided in that moment that 1, this would not stand, and 2, rather than entering into a long protracted quagmire of a prank war, I would use the nuclear option and end it immediately. My friend Mike was a well-known local bartender. I worked at the same bar as a bouncer, and he was very much enjoying single life at the time, facts which I knew I could take advantage of. Soon a plan began to form. I would have him served with a fake paternity suit while he was working at the bar. So I complied a ton of free online legal documents, not just for the paternity suit, but also income disclosure forms, statement of parental rights, and suggested visitation schedules pending demonstrational proof of sobriety. I filled out all the forms, then smeared what looked like date received stamps as proof they had been filed and ran copies to make those stamps even more illegible. From there, I crafted a backstory to be included in a cover letter from the fictional mother's fake law firm, the nearby City Family Law Centre, on letterhead and all. The mother was an Irish exchange student visiting the area the previous summer. She had only been with Mike, so she knew the baby, Eliza, was his. The cover letter encouraged Mike to call during regular office hours to discuss arranging a DNA test to affirm paternity. I set up a generic voicemail for the number listed as the office on the letterhead. By the end, the paperwork was somewhere between 20 to 25 pages. I enlisted another friend not known by Mike to serve the documents and instructed him to do so around 10 PM on a Saturday evening. I told him to keep the interaction very simple. I wasn't able to be by the back bar because I knew I would be laughing too hard, but based on eyewitness reports it played out like this. Friend: Are you Mike last name? Mike: Yes. Friend: Michael middle name last name? Mike: Yes. Friend: Drops folder on bar. Mike: What's that? Friend: Paternity suit. You've been served. Turns around and immediately walks out of the bar. Mike: Yeah, that sounds about right. Mike read through the packet, shakily poured himself several drinks, and then ran over to the bar owner, who was aware of the prank, to ask what to do. He also called the number on the letterhead, but sadly did not leave a voicemail. After a solid 10 minutes of intense psychological revenge, the owner finally told Mike he should closely read the last page of the document. On it, in size 2 font, it read, "Go F yourself, Mike," at which point Mike ran to the front door and punched me in the chest. Epilogue. Several months later, Mike was on a trip across the country. He had left his car at home with his mum, who generously had washed it for him. Mike, for some reason, kept the paternity suit paperwork in his driver's side door. During the course of the car wash, his mother found it and read the entire thing, then called him sobbing in the middle of the night, asking why he hadn't told her about her bastard Irish granddaughter. Oh my, that ending. And that's going to be it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the stories in r/ProRevenge. Let me know what you'd like to listen to next in the comment section below. And also hit that subscribe button because I post new Reddit content every single day. My name is Trey, this was Reload Reacts, and I will see you in the next video.